Let's talk about your journey, man. I mean, it's been such a crazy story back and forth about how you're able to come back. Now, you never really gave up hope. Like, you always said, I'm coming back.
So I didn't always.
Okay.
So my last match was in 2015, and then they sent me to these neurologists, and all these neurologists had cleared me. And none of these people were my doctors. They were doctors WWE would send me to. But then Dr. Maroon, he would just look like, because I kept a lot of things from him. And that's the thing, is that like, okay, your doctors need to be able to trust you, and they didn't trust me because I had lied to them. So,
What kind of issues were you feeling?
So, I mean, I didn't have any issues. So the things were lying about past stuff. So I had 4 post-concussion seizures, which that's the big one. That's the big one where it was like, and Bree was there for one of them. And so she said, after we'd gotten married, she said, the next concussion you have to tell somebody about it, because, and it had, by that point it hadn't happened in years, but she said you have to ask him, because she's concerned. I'm concerned too. We wanted to have a baby, so the WWE sends me to the doctor in Phoenix, and so we tell him about the seizures. And I don't know why I was this naive, in the sense of like, I thought, okay, I would tell him, and I just didn't think it would get back to the office, right? But then I also thought, I did think that when I told him about it, I thought my career would be kind of done. Mm-hmm. I was like, if they find out about this, they're not. Right. But he said it's actually because of the type of seizures that you have. It's like, he actually cleared me. He said your brain functions so well, and these were isolated incidents with a particular set of circumstances, and so he had cleared me. But then, imagine you're Dr. Maroon, you're the head of WWE Medical, and you've done it, and then all of a sudden you get this report about one of the talents talking about seizures, post-concussion seizures, and then, it's hard to regain trust after that.
Sure.
So then it's been like, I wasn't having any issues. I felt great, and I think that was one of the problems. And then in February of 2016, I had taken. So because I was going and doing all this weird stuff, trying to get cleared, right? So it's like I had heard about this certain type of testing that isn't necessarily used for diagnosis, but it's like that was used in MMA athletes and stuff like that. And so I was going and doing that and all this different types of stuff. And so, but I had been cleared by Dr. Cardenas, who was at Barrows Neurological, who's one of the best in the country. I'd been cleared by UCLA at that point, a team of doctors at UCLA, but they still wouldn't clear me in for valid reasons, because I think of the trust thing, and just if something happens, people are going to say, how did you clear this guy with this, right?
Yeah.
And so so I was going and oh, okay, well, I heard of this thing out in New York State. And so they hooked my brain up to all this EEG stuff and then had me do reflex testing. Well, what it showed is that my reflexes are a little slow in the temporal parietal region of my brain. But when you read the report, what it says is slowing in the temporal parietal region of the brain seems to indicate a small acute lesion or subacute lesion in the temporal parietal region of the brain. I'm like, I have a lesion in my brain? And it's like, and I, at this point, I was trying to be very forthcoming and honest with everybody about everything that I was doing, because that was one of the setbacks.
You had to.
Right. And so when I got that report, I was like, oh, and Vince had asked me, he said, when you get this report back, let me know, because he was kind of starting to almost be on my side a little bit. Like, all these doctors had cleared me, and so, well, let me know what the New York doctors say, and then, yada. So I called him and I told him, and he's like, well, it's good that we know now. And then, like, 2 days later, he called me and said, hey, I want you to retire in Seattle. And so it's like,
wow.
Yeah, and then, so that was 2 days later, he called and told me he'd like me to retire in Seattle, which was 2 days from the day that he called me. And so, but at that point, I was like, if I do have what most people, when you think of a lesion, you think of like a cut. Mm-hmm. And so if I have a cut on my brain, I always thought, I don't want to wrestle if it's bad for me. Like, if I shouldn't be wrestling, I don't want to wrestle.
I'm not going to tough through it or whatever.
Yeah. And so, So that made all the sense in the world to me. And then I retired, and it got like a bunch of, I mean,
Well, let's talk about that night though, because I remember I was there in Seattle when you
Yeah.
did that speech. It's one of the, I mean, greatest in a sad way moments in Raw history. Was that just all completely from the heart? Did you actually have someone write stuff for you? Did you write it all yourself?
So I wrote it all myself, but I didn't necessarily write it. I was trying to formulate what I wanted to say, because how I felt was not how I wanted to present myself. If that was going to be my last, if that was my last time
Hurrah,
talking
whatever,
about it, yeah. I don't want to talk about how I really felt was devastated.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to make it about being devastated. I wanted to I wanted to present it as, because if my career had ended then, the way I thought it was, where it was like, maybe I shouldn't wrestle anymore, I'm very grateful for the career that I had. Like 16 years being able to do this, like wrestling all over the world. I'm like, it's a cool job. Like, I haven't had to have a real job since I worked at a video store / tanning salon in like 2001. Like, kids today don't even know what video stores are, right? You know, like, and it's just a small town video store with a tanning salon in it, which just seems like a absurd concept. And it's like, that was my last real job. And besides that, all I've done is this really fun thing that we get to do and go around the world.
Yeah.
And so it's just like getting to meet awesome people and doing cool stuff. And so that's how I wanted to present it. And I tried to make myself feel that. And a lot of times I did, but there were also times where it was just like devastating. And I tried to push that part of my mindset back and focus on the gratitude part. So that's why in the when I talked about it, I had to keep saying gratitude to focus myself,
right?
To remind myself of how lucky I am.
So did you have an idea of like, what do I do now? Because I remember they were going to do like a bunch of Daniel Bryan tribute shows with you there, and you just said no way.
Well, what ended up happening, so we started filming the first season of Total Bellas. So then Bree and I are living in John's house, and Bree's on the road still full time. There's all these cameras around us, right?
Was that a shoot? Did you really live in John's house?
Yeah,
with
we
all these
live-
weird rules.
Yeah,
and stuff?
yeah. And so like we were there, and it was like super high stress, and it was also like when you're going through something challenging like that, I would want to be around my friends and family.
Yeah.
And not to say that I don't love Bree's family, because I do.
Right.
But those aren't the people that I'm closest to, that I need
yours, yeah.
Yeah, I need to be around my family, right? And like I literally just had this mental breakdown where I was just lost it. And so I ended up leaving. I just left
In the middle of the show?
in the middle of the show.
What was worse, the fact you couldn't wrestle, or the fact that Johnny Ace is now your dad?
I missed their wedding. Because of my mental breakdown.
Okay, so you just walked out.
Yeah, they were going to do Kathy, Bree's mom's bachelorette party that day, and I just
Couldn't take
I
it.
couldn't do it anymore, and I left. And so I went back to Phoenix, but then I went back to Washington. There, I kind of like mentally, emotionally healed for a little bit, and then I felt a lot better. And then I came up with a plan. I was going to go back to college. I had signed up for this sustainability course. Like there's a thing called permaculture, which is sustainable agriculture, kind of. But it's like one of the best permaculture courses in the country is up on Orcas Island in Washington State, and I had signed up for that. And so like, and then I had been accepted into ASU. I'd actually gotten a scholarship, which is strange because I didn't realize that your grades kind of transfer, even though the last time I went to college was like 2006. And so like, yeah, I mean, because of your grades and everything, you get a scholarship of this amount for ASU, for biology and ecology and that sort of thing. So that was my plan. Then they called me to do the GM thing. And so they had asked me a little bit before. They had said, when they were doing the Cruiserweight Classic, they said, do you want to come be a commentator for it? I know that you just retired, and we don't know if you want to be around it. And this was Hunter, and we don't know if you want to be around it, but just throwing it out there, we think you'd be great for it. I said, I'd love to do that. That sounds like a lot of fun. Nobody asked me about being GM. And so it was just like, it threw this monkey wrench in all of these plans that I had to get away from wrestling. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. After I had retired, the doctor in Phoenix from Barris Neurological, Dr. Cardenas, he called me and he said, what happened? Like, how you retired? I mean, like, your brain is fine. Like, there's... And I said, well, I got this report, and I sent it over to him.
About the lesion?
About the lesion. And he said, so this is not... A lesion in medical terms is not what you're thinking a lesion is. A lesion just means something is causing a slowing reaction in your brain. And because they don't know what it is, they're calling it a lesion. But he said, but when you look at this, it's not actually slow. It depends on who you're comparing it to. If you're comparing it to the general population, it's normal. But if you're comparing it to like MMA athletes or people like that who need fast reflexes, then it's slow. It's slower than you would expect of a professional athlete. But as you know, like, I don't need to have professional athletes' reflexes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so when he explained that to me, I was just like, oh man, is this just like a big mistake and all this kind of stuff, you know? So anyways, but I had accepted kind of the decision until they brought me back as GM, and then I just have to be around it every week. And then because of, I'm still doing a decent amount of traveling with that. Oh, yeah. And then I'm having to sit like at ringside for matches, and it's just like...
Did that hurt?
It hurt, and it was also just like, what am I doing? Like, because, and this is the part of me that is very like, what a sissy I am. As far as like, lots of people go to their jobs that they don't like and make way less money than me being the GM of SmackDown. But I could not get out of this mental space of being like, gosh, do I hate
See, I understand though, because it was taken away from you.
Yeah.
That's why.
Right. And so it, like, I literally disliked going to work every week. And anytime, like, there would be times where I'd fly in and I'd get the script for the show. And if I just had like a backstage, I'd try to like, and you know how hard it is to try to get stuff filmed before the show. I would push as many people as I could to be like, hey, let's and try to just leave that night.
So you could go, yeah.
Just so I could get out of there, you know? And so that was kind of, that's when it really started to be, that's when I really started to like, okay, I'm not going to accept this anymore. I'm going to come back. and that's what it is.
Because of what the doctor had told you about your brain is technically okay.
Yes. And not only that, so this is what he said. He said, the problem with, because I went and did some experimental stuff and stuff that's not approved by the FDA. He said, the problem with doing that stuff, and this is when he talked to me recently, because they sent me to him again. So they sent me to a ton more doctors before they would clear me here. And so he said, this is the thing, like, it was awesome, like, as far as self-knowledge, that you're willing to go and try these things. The problem with doing that is none of these things are FDA approved. So even if that test were to say, yeah, your brain is great, it doesn't mean anything to the other people because they're not FDA approved. Right. And then if it flags you for something, even it may not be valid because it's not FDA approved. So it's like, and not to say that the I don't know, and I don't even know if I'm saying it right, because FDA is the Food and Drug Administration, so maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. Whatever it is. Yeah. And so it's not approved stuff. So you doing it is good for your own self-knowledge, but it doesn't help you get cleared.
Yeah.
So like I did 80 plus hyperbaric oxygen therapy treatments.
What is that?
So you sit in this tank and it's goes to a really high pressure, and then you have these, and then it's filled with oxygen. And the idea, I'm going to mess this up, but the idea is that you get more oxygen and your brain receives more oxygen for healing. But a lot of athletes do it just to heal their body in general.
So is your head above the
No. I'm in a
sauna
tank.
Or something.
No, I'm in a tank.
Oh, tank.
So
okay.
I'm in a miniature submarine. And so you go in there and it pumps in all this oxygen into your brain. And I was working with the Joe Namath Institute in Florida.
That's the Joe Namath thing, right?
Yeah, and so but again, so they're doing stuff to get, like, there's all this testing going on throughout the United States with the hyperbaric oxygen therapy stuff, and they're in one of the trials with that, but it's not approved. So it's like when I talked to one of the doctors about it, who cleared me, like when I said, and I've completed over 80 hyperbaric oxygen. Now, you have to understand, each one of these sessions is like an hour and a half long, and it's 45 minutes from my house. So I go 45 minutes, I'm there for an hour and a half, then another 45 minutes back. So it's like a 3-hour investment. And a lot of times I was going twice a day.
And like,
yeah, I was putting my time in. And so when I said, I've done over 80 hyperbaric oxygen therapy treatments, he laughed at me. Like, that isn't proven to work. And I was it's just like, like I felt benefits from it. But
so how was it supposed to work? Gives you more oxygen, which helps your brain function better?
Yeah, which helps your brain function better. And my brain, the thing is that my brain didn't need to function better to perform better on these tests but I was trying to do everything I could to just show, hey, I'm good to go. Right. So I was trying to go above and beyond. Dr. Cardenas, the guy at Barrows Neurological, he said, I really felt like we dotted our I's and crossed our T's in 2015 when he saw me. He said, but you've really made a big scratch above the I and really slashed across the T to make sure that everything is good. So that's kind of.
So how were you able to finally convince Dr. Maroon and the WWE that you were okay to come back?
So, gosh, I mean, I had a conversation with Vince, and I had pushed to him. He had asked me all these questions. Well, what happens if you get another concussion? Or what happens if this? Or what happens if that? And I had kind of answers for him, and I laid it out. And so, I would have a different concussion protocol than everybody else. So, and this is one of my pitches to him is that, one of the things is that, and this happens in every sport, hockey, football, soccer, everything. When guys, they get a concussion and a trainer goes over to him and goes, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Do you have a concussion? No, I'm fine. That's everybody,
right,
myself included, right? So to stop that, because that's been an issue with me before, is that I'd literally if I'd had a concussion, I'd just walk off and they'd... Luke Harper has a story from Providence, Rhode Island, which was my second to last concussion. They couldn't. I kept wandering off around the building. I was looking for my filtered water bottle, and they couldn't keep track of me. The show was over. It'd been over for a long time, and then there I am just wandering around the building. And so, but my thing is that okay, after every match, this is my proposal. I have to go to the trainer's room. They do all the checks and all that kind of stuff. And if I don't do it, maybe there's a fine or there's something like that. So after every match, I get checked, which they've actually instituted. That's what's happening now.
Wow.
I get checked after. I not even thanking your opponents or anything like that. WrestleMania, I walk straight through Gorilla, no thank yous to anybody, straight to the doctors, and then I get checked.
What do they do?
So they do all just kind of basic neurological stuff, checking to make sure that
eyes and everything. Yeah.
And so that's, and we're revising that as we go because it's new for them too. Mm-hmm. But so that was my thing to Vince, and then so he said, well, type that up, put that in an email to Dr. Maroon and say this. And Dr. Maroon, and I give Dr. Maroon a lot of credit because it's hard to reverse your opinion when you're such a well-respected person.
Especially when you became such a hot button topic.
Yeah.
That's why I thought I didn't know, if you never got cleared, it would be because you've become such a name that if anything ever happened, it's see, we told you, we told you, right?
Yeah. And so I have a lot of respect for Dr. Maroon because he was willing to say okay, my opinion might not be right on this. And he sent me he said, these are the three neurologists that I think are the best neurologists. And so he sent me to those 3 neurologists, and then I ended up having to be sent to a couple more. But he didn't send me to neurologist because he could have easily sent me to neurologists that would have just confirmed his opinion. He could have sent me to just somebody who would have said, well, I don't know, due to your history or whatever it is. But he sent me to the people who are doing the latest, that have all the most best recent concussion research. Those are the people that he sent me to. And so he didn't want just somebody a layup who confirms his own opinion. He wanted to get to the right answer. And so I have a lot of respect for him for that. And that at the end of the day, it's not Dr. Cardenas, it's not Dr. Kutcher in Michigan, who was awesome. I saw him. It wasn't UCLA. It wasn't the other neurologist. If I get hurt, it doesn't go to those people. It goes to Dr. Maroon,
right?
Because
Exactly.
he's the head of medical.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of respect for him for that. But that was kind of the beginning of the process. And then it was just like, okay, we're going to send you to this person. We're going to send you to this person. We're going to send you to this person. Okay, now if we do clear to wrestle, what's that going to look like? You know, like all that kind of stuff. What's your schedule going to be like? Turns out we haven't really talked about the schedule much, and they've just thrown me into live events. And so now I'm on that full European tour, and like, you know, so back to the full-time
Well, I
stuff.
love it too. They're protecting you too by giving you the most painful move I've ever taken, the power bomb onto the apron.
Oh.
I was like, oh, that's a good way to come back.
Well, so the thing...
Could have given you a few hip tosses first.
Yeah, so the idea is, if you're cleared, you're cleared, right? And
Full bore, yeah.
And that's... I mean, it's one thing if I had a back and neck injury or something like that, but as far as I know, Kevin's never hurt anybody on that.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, it's not malicious. It just hurts because of the way you bump on it.
It just hurts.
You know,
it just
the way
hurts.
it is.
Yeah,
It's funny because I took it the first time in Las Vegas. We did the Festival of Friendship, and he's telling me about it. I was like, yeah, I mean, I got to be out for 3 weeks. What a great way to put me out. And he gave it to me, and I like, oh my gosh, I was just like, and then at Mania, it's like, wow. Hit me with it again, roll me in, and pin me. And it was like that second one. I reached, I turned. I was like, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Because I'll hurt myself by like not taking it, even if there's any proper way to take it anyway. So when I saw you take it, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
right back in.
Yeah.
When did you find out that you were cleared?
Literally they made the announcement on the Tuesday. I found out at 9:30 p.m. Monday night, the night before. Wow. And apparently it was still kind of being talked about Tuesday morning as far as whether or not they were actually going to, like, I had got Dr. Maroon, like, it made me cry. He had already left. I was in Bahrain and Abu Dhabi doing the Special Olympics and stuff. Flew back to Dallas, which is where the show was. And then they'd call me like the day before, hey, you need to go to Pittsburgh. Okay. So I go to Dallas, go to Pittsburgh, land at 7, go straight to Dr. Maroon's office. 4 doctors there waiting for me, going through all these like tests and scans and talking to me and all this kind of stuff. And then at 9:30 at night, Dr. Maroon at that point had already left, but he left me a sheet of paper and it said, "It's been a long time. Finally, you're cleared." I just, I cried. Yeah.
How did that feel?
I was like, it was kind of, I was preparing myself to not be cleared, right? When Dr. Maroon had sent me to 3 doctors, and then they were like, okay, now go to another doctor, and now go to another doctor, I was just kind of like,
Come on, guys.
yeah, I mean, I was just like, oh, like, he's now, in hindsight, I see it as he's just protecting himself, right? As far as like, okay, I'll do, but for me, in the moment, it's feeling like they're just going to send me to doctors until somebody says no. Right. And so, yeah, I had, but I mean, that was even still, that was like so it was like, it was this big, like, I cried, I called Bree, she cried, and she's not a big crier, and it's like, because we've been going through this together, you know, like it's funny, we talked about it because we just had our 4-year wedding anniversary. In the 4 years that we've been married, I've only wrestled during that time for about 4 months.
Right.
Because I had my neck surgery, I was out, came back, I was on the road for 4 months, and then I had the concussion thing and hadn't wrestled since. And
so amazing. You had that big main event at WrestleMania where you won the title.
Yep.
Then you got hurt.
Yep.
Then you came back, won another title.
Yep.
Then you got hurt.
Yep.
It was just this horrible things of one thing after another happening.
Yeah.
When you were thinking about it, when you thought that Maroon might not clear you, or they might just keep sending you until someone said no, because I know you were telling me, and it's public knowledge, that your contract is up very soon.
September 1st.
Were you about to go?
Yes.
And
100%. Yeah. So like, so yeah, I had, at that point I was just like, you know what? I'm going to wrestle. Like, I love to wrestle. Like, it's just a part of me. And not only that, I didn't feel like I got I didn't get a satisfying conclusion, right? I wasn't ready to be done. It's interesting because had I just kept wrestling if when I got cleared in 2015, like if 2015, a couple weeks after that concussion, they put me back in there and I wrestled. By now, I might be ready to be like, okay, I'm ready to be done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because it was taken away, now I'm just like, I was ready to I wanted to go to kind of New Japan, Ring of Honor, and CMLL. Like I'd done I've done a little bit in Mexico, but I always wanted to do, even though there's no money there, like in comparison,
sure.
I wanted to do like mask and hair matches and all that kind of stuff. And so
I think you probably could have done some decent business there because there is money there. And plus with you coming in with your name value, like I started my career in Mexico, so I know what you're saying. I've had mask matches and hair matches in Arena Mexico, just being in there. And it's part of the journey.
Yeah. Well, and, because I was trying to research, like, okay, how would I wrestle if I come back? Because I need to wrestle kind of a safer style. Austin had actually gotten on me about that when I came back from my neck surgery. He was like, he had given me a call. It was actually, it's crazy because like 1996 when he did the Austin 316 promo, I was still in high school, right? Like just this fan, right? And then the first time he called, he's like, "Whoa! I just got called by Steve Austin." Yeah.
And the thing with Steve is he's not much of a texter. He's still the last guy I still talk to on the phone.
Yes, absolutely.
He only wants to call.
Yeah, and so he called, but he had called me and he's like, it's not my place to tell you this, but I think I should. And we talked for about 45 minutes about the need to change my style and all that kind of stuff. And so I was looking at, okay, what's the best way to do it? Because, he's talking about Jerry Lawler, and I love watching Jerry Lawler wrestle, but you can't necessarily translate Jerry Lawler's style to WWE now, and especially with the way things are. And so like mixing things, and who are the guys, like Negro Casas is still awesome.
And he's 10 years older than me, so he's 57.
Yeah, so
he's still awesome.
Still awesome, and still doing his thing. And so it's like, so that kind of stuff. And I'd gotten really deep into this lucha lore, right? Like I'd gotten into this deep 80s lucha thing where I was just like trying to find as much 80s lucha as I could on YouTube, which is just weird. There's so many little rabbit holes to go down into.
It's so different from today's lucha. Too.
Yeah.
The high flyers like Super Astro who did like a diving headbutt or something.
Yeah, and so like, I just did this deep dive into 80s lucha, and so I was just like, man, and then I became obsessed with like, I want to do mask and hair matches. I want to go around and collect all these masks, and then whoever their big masked guy is, then he'll take my hair and maybe my beard too, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So you wanted to do that, and then obviously now with the Ring of Honor New Japan, you look at guys like Young Bucks and Kenny and Cody. I mean, they're ruling the world. Yeah. Outside of here, and I could see you obviously would have fit in there in one day if you would be.
Well, and one of the things that I thought is one of the things that Bullet Club especially is very hot, right? But they need somebody to go against, right? And so it's like as far as something that would draw money and interest and bring independent wrestling to another level, like I thought that's it. And then you came in and just did it. And so it's just like but it's true. Like the New Japan's, like there was more interest in the New Japan Dome show ever before in America because all of a sudden, okay, you've got the Bullet Club who's super hot, Kenny Omega who's super hot, and then now you've got Chris Jericho who's in it too, and now it's like, holy cow, this match, right? So it's like that's what I was thinking as far as like a long-term thing that we could do that for a couple of years, right?
It opens up like a dozen dream matches.
Yeah,
just one guy coming in, can open up, like you said, like months and years of programming.
Yeah,
right.
So
and because you had worked for Ring of Honor before.
Yes.
But now to go back there, they're pretty hot. Like independent wrestling is so hot right now.
Yeah.
Probably more than maybe ever since maybe the 80s or something.
Yeah, and it's crazy because there's the availability thing, right? And so it's interesting. I read a lot, like just a lot. And so reading, so there's no show like, I want to say like the Johnny Carson show that everybody watches, right? Everybody across society watches this one show. You have people who are like, I love Breaking Bad, or you have people who are like, I like Game of Thrones, or whatever it is, and not everything, but these people who get into it, they get deep into it.
Right.
And now the people who are deep into, there's so many people who are, there's less general fans maybe of pro wrestling in the United States, but there's more deep fans than there ever have been before. And the ability to, like, if you were a wrestling nerd like I was in high school who just couldn't see enough wrestling, well, actually, you can't. There's an endless amount of wrestling for you to watch.
Oh yeah.
Like so yeah. So I mean, it's created all these new hardcore fans who are deep into professional wrestling and follow things like Ring of Honor or Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, or follow the stuff in Japan, or follow what's going on in Mexico and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's really neat.
Were you watching a lot of the stuff?
No.
Yeah.
So
I'm the same.
Yeah. So I'm interested.
So when I did the Tokyo Dome show, there's a lot of people saying, like, you know, wrestling fans, God bless, but how's Jericho going to keep up with Kenny Omega? And how's he going to do it? And it's like, I don't have to keep up with anybody, because we're going to do the match my way. Obviously, I know what Kenny can do and his style, but it's like, I'm not going to go in there and start taking, dragon suplexes off the top rope into the ring. Like you mentioned, like, you're watching the style of everybody's matches. Like, the style is good wrestling is good wrestling. That's the style.
Absolutely.
And I was laughing about that when people were like, oh my God, it's the best match of Jericho's career and whatever. Like, whether you think so or not, the fact that anybody even doubted me or would doubt you on if you can do a certain style, of course we can. This is what we do.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting to me, because I think the difference in styles is actually what makes things interesting. If you just have the same people around all the time, just working the same kind of style, like you coming in makes it, what is this going to be? It's going to be
exactly.
It's going to be different,
Right.
So I always think that that's unique and interesting in any form of entertainment. So
it's interesting too, because like I've been working here for 17 years after working around the world like you did, and going to New Japan, just seeing like the big difference in, like, we talk about WWE style. Basically what WWE style is knowing how to put on a proper match. And why I say that is, like, there's a lot of stuff going on in the New Japan style where it's like very indie-rific. A lot of cheap shots in front of the ref and just stuff like that, stuff that we would never do,
right?
Because it just doesn't make sense,
right?
The guy will pull out a chair and hit somebody right in front of Red Shoes. I'm like, that's a DQ,
right? Yeah.
Like, why is that not a DQ?
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, for our match, we had it as a no DQ match, because I didn't want to have those bad habits that they have there,
right?
And that's saying that, I mean, it's just the Japanese way,
yeah.
And that's like working here.
Right.
We really do learn a lot about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's inherent flaws in any style, because once you get involved in kind of the same people running things for the same time, they have a certain viewpoint on it that outsiders will probably look at it and be like, hey, wait a second, why is this happening, or why is that happening? And the same thing with New Japan or with Lucha. Some people watch Lucha and they're like, I don't get it. Yeah, and that was me for the longest time. I'd watch it.
That doesn't make any sense either. Yeah. Start watching it.
Yeah, I don't get it. And then you start to understand, oh, this is what this is, and this is what that is, or whatever it is, and this is just the rules. This is how it operates. Whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter.
It's really strange how every fall, whenever one guy loses, the other two lose really quickly right now. Yeah. It's a very strange thing.